Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode, I believe, of Seattle Artist Spotlight. These are always the worst intros you can find on the internet. If you haven't seen the previous episodes of Seattle Artist Spotlight, you can find the link to at least one of them, maybe even the entire playlist right there.
Here.
There. Not there. This is Maddy Smith. She is the two tides. She is both of the tides. She is the moon and the ocean, all in one embodiment. And you know what? You should just describe what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get right into it then. Well, I've been a singer-songwriter for a number of years, and I've been doing my own thing. And then about a year and a half ago, I started a band called The Two Tides. And it's mainly becoming sort of the full band version of my solo stuff. It's very much integrating folk and jazz and those kind of influences together, and very reflective of my internal dialogue and thoughts and struggles and triumphs. So that is the Two Tides, and we have been playing around Seattle for the last year and a half about. Starting out with places like the Bourbon Bar, and then last year we got to play like Tractor Tavern, Barboza, some really cool venues. So it's been going good so far, and it's gonna keep going on.
And does the Two Tides, just as you said, represent your inner workings, or why the Two Tides?
Well, yeah. I mean, the name itself, I sort of have always felt like there's a lot of tension in music. There's a push and a pull, and I kind of like that motif, and I've always been really drawn to the ocean growing up in the Puget Sound and things like that. So it's kind of, the name sort of was a culminating factor of a bunch of different things, and but really that motif of the push and the pull, and when you're working with somebody else and you have to kind of make compromises for things to work. It's also reflective of relationships, I think, when you're in a relationship with somebody and there's a give and a take. And then when two things sort of come together and it all works out really nicely. It's just about the labor of love to get there, I think. So that's kind of the meaning behind the name. But it's also anything you want it to be. I think lots of people have their own interpretation, so just like my music. Yeah, I feel there's a lot of imagery in it, which is fun, for sure.
So, you mentioned growing up in the Seattle area. I was going to ask you, did you grow up in the Seattle area? How long have you been here?
I have been here for a while. So, I grew up on the east side, probably since I was about 5 or 6 years old. I did move here from Australia, so I'm an Australian-born person. Yeah.
I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, we moved here when I was a kid, when I was a little 5-year-old, and I grew up on the east side in the Bellevue area, and then I went up to Bellingham, Washington, up north for school, and did a few years there, and did some music up there, and had a band in college and all those kind of fun things. Again, very much near the water, and I think that's why a lot of the natural elements of the world kind of like leak their way into my music often, is because I've always been drawn to that. Just like a lot of other people in the Northwest, I have that sort of wanderlust and affinity for outdoor elements. And the moon it comes up a lot in my writing for some reason. Like,
well,
the moon is a
sense.
tide.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Seattle music scene.
Yes.
So, what is as I've been saying lately, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but maybe a second thing for good. Great, good, bad, ugly.
Yeah, no, I feel that. Great, good, bad, ugly. Well, I mean, a lot of my branding and vibe with the Two Tides is very positive, so I'm not one to talk about the negatives, but we can get into that too. But
well, you can just talk about the positives.
Yeah, for the positives, I mean, I think Seattle's music scene is really fantastic. I don't know a ton about the history of the grunge scene and all that stuff, but I think it always has thrived in the past, and it continues to thrive today, just with the variety of venues, I think, which is really interesting to me. I think there's so many opportunities to play so many different places, which is really cool. And you have Ballard, which is a whole scene in itself, and then you have other areas, and the Fremont Abbey, and there's a lot of sort of crossover of genres and Nectar Lounge and all that stuff. So I think that's one really strong thing about the Seattle music scene is just the number of venues and the number of participating places that are allowing artists to put on shows and do their thing. I think that's probably the number one sort of foundation in having a strong music scene, is having literally the space to play. We're all sort of supporting each other, we're all in it together, and the notion that one person's success can breed another person's success we're all sort of, we can be successful with each other together. It does feel very non-competitive to me here, which is really nice, opposed to other cities from the things
LA.
that I've heard about them. LA, Nashville, we're looking at you. And I think that's really cool. I think music should be collaborative. I think it should be sort of, when you have that community feel, I think that's when a scene can become really strong. And I do believe in Seattle's music scene. I think people are coming here to be musicians. I mean, our friend Spence did for a number of reasons,
Episode
I'm sure.
1.
That was a cute episode 1. A really important part of it is not only having the number of venues, but also to have, you know, your community and your group of people that are all about uplifting and not putting anyone down. I think that's key for a very positive scene, at least, for sure. And it's very much a known scene, I think. It's on the map, so yeah.
It is. Where do you see the scene developing or evolving into the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much change I foresee, because I think it's been kind of the same for a while. When I talk to people who have been doing this for the last 10 years, it's like they say that they were, you know, doing open mics 10 years ago. They were playing at the Skylark or whatever it is. So it feels like there hasn't been a lot of change so far. So I think for the future, I think that it's going to continue to be a very supportive place. I think there are a lot of initiatives in supporting artists too, with like healthcare and housing and things like that. And my hope is to see that becomes even more readily available. But I know there's like Artist Trust and several foundations and sort of coalitions that are working to provide artists with what they need, because it's an interesting life of not necessarily having steady income and things like that. So I think that might be one part of it. I think there's a lot of representation in Seattle, I feel, which is really good to see, of people of all kinds of genders and races and identities, and I think that that's relatively strong in Seattle. I would like to see it get even stronger, potentially, but I think there's places like Love City Love where you can go and hear something that you've probably never heard before, and I love the way that the venues sort of integrate that, and you have venues that are really pushing for that representation. I think that's really cool. So I see it getting even stronger in terms of representation and variety. I don't think we're going to be reverting back to grunge, like a grunge-only city or anything like that. In general, I mean, everybody's listening to everything, and I think that's great. There's a place, there's so many musicians, and there's kind of a place for all of us, which I think is really cool, especially in a city like this.
So we talked about where the Seattle scene might be going in the next few years. Where do you see yourself fitting into these worlds or into the scene as a whole?
For me, it's about creating a really great show that we do like once every 2 months maybe, rather than trying to do it so often. I kind of like the idea of making it like a bigger thing and sort of staggering shows. Yeah, I think that's how I'm hoping to fit in with it, in terms of like the actual scene and with the direction of my music, which I'm not sure exactly where it's going right now. I'm kind of rethinking things, but I've always just wanted to aim to have people come out and have a really cool listening experience and be very reflective. I don't know exactly where that fits in yet, because the older version of the Two Tides was a little more bouncy and mainstream sort of folk pop type music, and I think we were playing venues and having a fun time and all those things. But I think this year and beyond, I'm kind of taking it in a little bit of a different direction, in which it'll be more reflective of my solo stuff, which is very contemplative and very emotional, and I'm going to try and have to work out how to fuse those things together so that there's a balance of the energy and the fun and the uplifting, and then also put a little bit more of my personal emotional touch on on the band sound as well, I think. So where we fit in with that kind of direction will be interesting. Of course, like my ultimate goal of goals is to play something like Triple Door or Jazz Alley even, if we have enough jazz in there to qualify. But
enough jazz to enter the alley.
Exactly. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think in terms of my place in the scene, like I absolutely prioritize cultivating some really cool bills and shows and continuing to network and getting to know other artists. I think there's new musicians coming to Seattle all the time, which is really fun. Like I am constantly meeting somebody who's like, yeah, I just moved here. I'm just starting out doing this thing, and I'm like, oh, cool. I've been doing this for a couple of years. I think I've been basically doing the Seattle music scene for 2 years now.
Well, as is customary with Seattle Artist Spotlight, I have a very special short thing to show you.
Okay.
And it's a cover of one of your songs.
Yay!
Everyone who's watching should know this by now. As long as you saw the other episodes, which you should. Well, I think this was one of the first songs I saw on your website.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of a live studio thing with you and Sarah.
Yeah.
And I believe the song was called Dove.
Cool.
And we're back.
That was so cool. I loved it. It's very cinematic. Like, it's like if Dove was in a dramatic movie with like people on a ship.
The Titanic?
Yeah, that's what I was picturing.
Okay, cool.
That's cool. No, I love the way you like can take those motifs and then kind of like twist them a little bit to your own and stuff. And I can like hear that it's Dove, but it's also like hearing it in a whole new way. And that's, thank you for covering it. Very cool.
It's true, because each of the covers are only like a minute long. I can't really take like the verse and the chorus and then the lyric. You know,
right. It's like a tiny little homage to like each part almost, which is really sweet.
And I think this is the first cover that I've done for this series that I haven't like jazzed up the harmony insanely or anything like that. Like I stayed pretty true to the chords, and that's because they're already really cool.
Cool.
Interesting. And this was a wind quintet arrangement.
That is so cool. I think as long as I'm an artist, I probably won't have someone cover a song of mine in that way again. So that's a first. I love it.
Well, we'll do it again for a bigger thing.
That sounds great.
If you like that cover of Dove by Two Tides, why don't you follow this link to check out the actual full song? It is an in-studio performance and recording, and it's really cool, and it's actually more than 56 seconds long, so go enjoy it. I guess there's only one more thing to discuss, and that is how the heck we met.
You and I?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a long story.
Is it? I don't know if that's a long story.
No, I guess we met through Jesse, my bass player, who's also a lot of other people's bass players and drummer and
his own act.
And his own thing. Yeah, he's a multi-instrumentalist, fantastic person. I'll definitely talk louder because he's also my roommate, so he's here. And he can hear me.
But I always ask how we met with people, but for you, I can't remember.
No, you came over to play some games. That's the first time I met you, I feel like.
Yeah, was it here?
Yeah. You just came over for like a game.
Actually, yeah. No, I had definitely heard of you before, but yeah, that's probably the first time I met you.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, very exciting.
See what board games and video games can net you? Maddy's.
Yeah.
Maddy's, just in general. Well, Thank you so much for your time, Maddie.
Thank you, Sabin. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on Seattle Spotlight.
As usual, socials and all that kind of promo stuff will be in the description,
Cool.
way down there. And yeah, thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next month. Thanks again to Maddie. Bye-bye. You're good.
You can just edit something out if I'm like awkward, like if I'm like I
no,
feel
it's all
so
unedited.
about-
This is being uploaded immediately. It's actually live.
Oh, good.
Of course, no matter what answers you have on Seattle Artist Spotlight, I will make you look bad.
They are the wrong answers.
That's the motto of Seattle Artist Spotlight, obviously.